Actually, this is the first time I've seen this photograph, but this is the first time I'm looking at it this way, where I realized that as I'm raising my right hand, you can see Justice Sotomayor's right hand. I hadn't noticed that before. And my left hand is on two Bibles, one that of Miss Shelton, an extraordinary person in my life, and as we have always thought of her, our second mother. And I also asked to borrow Thurgood Marshall's Bible. And my darling husband, Dougie, is looking at me while I take the oath to become the 49th Vice President of the United States. Only 2 weeks after there was a riot on our Capitol, and I have taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution many times, and that day taking that oath had a particular resonance given the fact that we have sadly learned that not everyone takes that oath seriously. This photograph shows my arrival at West Point at the military academy to give the commencement speech. And the cadets are saluting me as I walk toward the stage. And I've had the distinction then of giving a commencement speech at 4 military academies, at West Point, for the Marines, for the Coast Guard, and for the Air Force. So it has been my great honor. I think there's no more noble work than being prepared to serve and sacrifice for the sake of our nation's safety, security, and prosperity. Here I am standing on Interstate 95 with these most highly skilled and talented working people who rebuilt that interstate in record time. They worked around the clock, and they do such good work, and it was a really enjoyable day to celebrate them, and I was there to thank them for their work. And I'm very proud that we have been the most pro-union administration in history. So this photograph depicts our arrival, Doug and me, and our team in Ghana. And you can see Air Force 2 in the background. It was very important to me, and it will continue to be, to frankly upgrade the narrative about the relationship between the United States and the continent of Africa. There is so much talent on that continent. By 2050, 1 in 4 people will be on the continent of Africa. And this trip, which I purposely then curated to highlight partnerships and U.S. investment in partnership with African leaders, that is about investing in the future of the world. So I was very proud about that trip. And the stop in Zambia had deep personal significance for me because my grandparents lived in Zambia many years ago, and as a child I visited them there. And so during that official trip to Zambia, I went to the location where my grandparents lived. It was a great trip all around. Here I am with my 2 Dougies. My Dougie, the second gentleman, and Dougie Fresh. And I so enjoyed it. They have bonded in such a wonderful way, and every time we see Dougie Fresh, he and my Dougie just embrace each other with a big old hug. And this day was the day I was very proud to host some of the pioneers of hip-hop to celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip-hop at the Vice President's residence. And so Dougie Fresh performed, Common came, and MC Lyte. It was an extraordinary array of talent, and I was just very proud to do that at this place called the Vice President's residence. And what's been surprising to me, actually, is the number of people who've never been there. And we've hosted an extraordinary number of events that have never been hosted at that house, celebrating Dia de las Madres, a huge pride celebration. Diwali. We have hosted DC public school students, which has been one of my greatest joys. And part of how I've used this house is to, through the events we've done, reinforce the importance of building community and building coalitions and reminding people that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And when I can bring a whole big group of people together at that house who seemingly have nothing in common and who leave then realizing they have everything in common, there's nothing better. Nothing better. So this photograph was taken during my college tour, but it was actually a college age tour because it was colleges, universities, community colleges, and trade schools. And I created this tour because I love Gen Z and I wanted to create a place and an opportunity to listen to their concerns, their thoughts about their lives and their future, and to be able to share some of what's happening in our country in a way that is intended to really acknowledge their leadership and the importance of their voice. And so this group of students were part of the group who greeted me when I arrived. They were also doing voter registration and making a huge difference. And hundreds of students and young people would show up. They'd stand in line and wait for hours to get in. I love telling other people about how this generation is prepared to lead. They are wonderfully impatient. They're not going to sit around and wait for other people to get the job done. They're prepared to do it. And I love that about them. This photograph is when I went to a reproductive health clinic in Minnesota to highlight the important work that they are doing and to highlight what has happened in terms of the healthcare crisis that the Dobbs decision created and took a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. A lot of these clinics have had to close. The clinics that have stayed open in states that still provide legal protections, they're overburdened because women from surrounding states are going there if there's a Trump abortion ban in those states. But what I didn't know was that no vice president or president has ever visited a reproductive health clinic. And what was really great, and you can see the top of his head in this photograph, is my buddy, Tim Walz, Governor Walz, joined me. And he has, as governor, been so forceful in his leadership around the importance of reproductive health care. And what I have to say is that the work that these incredible people do, that is about healthcare, it's about everything from HIV testing to breast cancer screening to PAPs to abortion care, is work that we should protect and give people the right to choose what they want and what they need. So this photograph was taken at a memorial that has been constructed in Parkland, Florida, to honor the 17 people that were killed in the Parkland shooting, in the massacre. 14 students, 3 faculty. I was there at the invitation of the families. They preserved the crime scene, and it was very smart. They did it as a way to make sure that policymakers, that leaders really fully understand what gun violence does. And there was dried blood on the floor. There were backpacks that the kids had obviously dropped as they were trying to flee. And I went there as vice president to, again, call for reasonable gun safety laws in America, including the need for assault weapons bans and universal background checks and red flag laws. I just have to say that those families are extraordinarily courageous. All of these years, through their profound grief, they still share the story of their grief and that tragedy with the purpose of trying to compel leaders to do the right thing. So this is me walking through the halls of the United States Congress, and I'm walking by the most extraordinary portrait that hangs in the halls of Congress of Shirley Chisholm. You know, what I love about this portrait is, you know, her shoulders kind of out like that, because the way I think of her is that those broad shoulders of Shirley Chisholm, I stand on those broad shoulders. She paved a path that I would be the first woman vice president of the United States, that I would be the first Black woman to be a nominee, Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And this photograph reminds me of important advice that my mother gave me that I offered to everyone often, which is, you may be the first to do many things, but make sure you're not the last. There we are.